All right, strap in, everyone, because today we're diving deep into one of those moments that changed everything, the Battle of Gettysburg.
Oh, Gettysburg. It wasn't just another battle, no sir. 3 days in July of 1863 that turned a small town in Pennsylvania into, well, the crucible of a nation teetering on the brink.
And I'm all about those pivotal moments, those decisions that could have sent history down a completely different path.
And that's exactly what we're going to unpack today.
You got it.
Using some pretty incredible firsthand accounts, diaries, letters, really get into the nitty-gritty of what went down at Gettysburg.
Okay, so before we get into the blood and the mud and the chaos of battle, let's set the scene for folks.
Right. Rewind back to 1863. Civil War has been raging for a couple of years now.
Yeah, the nation is divided, brother against brother, and the Confederacy, they're looking for, they need a game changer.
Desperate for a win, you could say.
Absolutely. Something to swing the momentum their way, maybe even force the Union to the negotiating table.
And you got to remember, the South, they're feeling the pressure, especially back home in Virginia.
Right on their own soil.
So the thought was, hey, if we can strike a blow in the North...
Take the fight to them.
Exactly. Maybe that'll sway public opinion, maybe even push Lincoln towards peace talks. Who knows?
So that's where Robert E. Lee comes in, right? The legendary general, leading his army of Northern Virginia northwards.
A bold move, a risky move. Some might even say reckless.
Well, he wasn't just marching north for a stroll in the park.
No, sir. Lee's goals, they were ambitious, to say the least.
Oh, yeah.
Not just win a battle, but disrupt the whole Union supply chain. Imagine that. Maybe even threaten cities like Harrisburg, Philadelphia, put the fear of God into the North.
Talk about a power move, but also, like you said, a huge gamble.
Oh, yeah, everything was riding on this.
And speaking of gambles, what about the Union side?
Oh, talk about a shakeup.
This is where it gets wild, right? Lincoln replaces General Hooker, right before the battle.
Days before, just days.
Talk about pressure. I mean, new commander, new battle plan, facing off against Lee.
That's like stepping into the ring with Mike Tyson with, 5 minutes of training.
Exactly. And it's not like this is a one-on-one duel either.
No way. On both sides, you've got all these other players, personalities, generals with their own ideas, their own agendas.
So it's not just about Lee's brilliance, but also how his team executes, right?
Absolutely. You've got Longstreet, Ewell, A.P. Hill,
Yeah.
all trying to make Lee's vision a reality.
And for the Union, you've got Buford, Hancock, and of course the newly appointed Meade, all scrambling to figure out what Lee's up to.
Yeah, a real clash of titans.
But something I found fascinating reading about the lead up to the battle,
Oh, yeah.
the Confederates, they're missing a key piece. Their cavalry under J.E.B. Stuart.
Stuart, yeah, the eyes and ears of the army, and they're nowhere to be found.
That's got to be like playing chess, but your opponent can see all your pieces, and you're blindfolded.
Exactly. Lee was basically marching into Gettysburg blind.
Huge disadvantage.
It really highlights the importance of intel, of knowing what the enemy's up to.
So day one of the battle, July 1st, 1863, everything kicks off west of Gettysburg.
Not the grand showdown everyone expects, though. More like a fender bender that escalates quickly.
That's a good way to put it.
You've got a small group of Confederates under General Heth.
Bumping into, who do they bump into?
Union cavalry, led by General John Buford, almost by accident,
Like those classic Western movies.
Two gunslingers in a dusty town.
Staring each other down.
Except this stare down, it's about to explode into the bloodiest battle in American history.
And Buford, he's no fool. He sees the terrain.
Oh, Buford, he was a sharp one. Understood the lay of the land.
The importance of that high ground south of town.
Absolutely. He knows those hills are key.
So instead of retreating, he decides to, what does he do?
Delay? Buy some time? Let those Union reinforcements arrive?
Smart move.
He knew that holding those hills could be the key to winning the whole dang thing.
And those reinforcements, that's the Union I Corps under General John Reynolds, right?
That's right. But it's chaos. Absolute chaos. And in the thick of it.
This is where it gets heartbreaking.
Reynolds, a brilliant commander, a real leader.
Killed almost as soon as he gets to the field.
Just like that, a bullet finds him.
It's a reminder of how unpredictable, how cruel war can be.
Yeah, no matter how skilled you are, how experienced you are, sometimes luck just runs out.
And the fighting, it intensifies, especially around this road, the Chambersburg Pike.
Oh, that's where you see some real grit,
Yeah.
real determination.
I was reading about the Iron Brigade.
Tough as nails those boys were. from the Midwest.
Known for their tenacity.
They earned that nickname, that's for sure.
But the Confederates, they're not letting up either.
No, sir. General Ewell arrives, fresh troops, and he starts using these flanking maneuvers.
Basically attacking from the sides, right. Classic military tactic.
Yeah, it's like you're trying to hold a line, and suddenly you've got enemies on both sides of you.
Talk about disorienting.
And moralizing, too.
So despite their bravery, the Union soldiers, they're forced to give ground. They start retreating.
Back through the town. A chaotic scramble.
Heading for that high ground that Buford was so determined to hold.
And that's where they dig in, on Cemetery Hill, a name that will forever be etched in history.
Day one ends, the Union's battered, but they're still in it.
But the question is, can they hold on?
Because we know Lee, he's just getting started, and tomorrow's going to be even more intense.
Oh yeah, this is just the beginning.
So we left off, Union Army, they're clinging to Cemetery Hill, first day of Gettysburg. It's a slugfest, but nobody's knocked out yet.
Yeah, imagine that. You're a soldier on either side, sun's going down, the fighting dies down.
Exhaustion's setting in.
You can hear the wounded, but for the generals, the commanders, there's no rest.
Nope, the gears are still turning.
They know this is just the beginning.
It's like, all right, round one's over. We felt each other out, but now it's time for the real fight.
It's it. Daybreak on July 2nd, both armies are scrambling.
Got to get those reinforcements up. Get into position.
Thousands more soldiers pouring in, the lines stretching for miles, and, the landscape itself, it starts to play a role.
Oh, yeah, those names, they become etched in history. Culp's Hill, Cemetery Ridge, Little Round Top.
Each one a stage for a desperate struggle.
Looking at the map here, the Union line, it forms this kind of fishhook shape.
Yeah, anchored on Culp's Hill, running south along Cemetery Ridge, that's right.
And that shape, it gave them a defensive advantage, right?
They could shift troops, artillery along those lines, support each other.
Smart.
But it's a double-edged sword. Got to protect those flanks, those exposed ends. That's vital.
And Lee, he's not going to just sit back and watch, is he? He's always on the offensive.
No, sir. He wants to smash that Union left flank, hoping to roll up their entire line, ambitious.
Like a chess game, right?
Trying to outmaneuver, outthink your opponent.
Looking for that one weakness, that one opening.
But as we all know, war rarely goes according to plan.
Too many moving pieces.
And one decision, one seemingly small choice by a Union general, throws a wrench into everything.
General Daniel Sickles, enter stage left.
Sickles, now there's a character. Flamboyant, ambitious.
He's not happy with his position down at the southern end of Cemetery Ridge.
Too low, too exposed, that's what he's thinking.
So what does he do?
He takes matters into his own hands, moves his 3 corps forward.
Bold move.
Creates this bulge in the Union line, they call it a salient, out near a peach orchard.
I can see why he did it, maybe get a better view of the enemy, but wasn't that a huge risk?
Oh, absolutely, like sticking your chin out and inviting a punch.
And Lee, he sees this opportunity, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah. Longstreet. Always the cautious one. He advises against attacking.
Lee's not having it.
Lee's determined. He smelled blood.
Around 4 p.m., the Confederate assault begins, and it is brutal.
Oh, it's hand-to-hand fighting, close quarters. Desperate, the fighting here. Some of the most intense of the entire war.
Little Round Top, Devil's Den, the wheat field, the peach orchard. These names, they're forever tied to unimaginable courage, sacrifice.
This wasn't just armies clashing. This was individual soldiers, young men fighting for their lives, their buddies, everything they believe in.
And in all this chaos, we see those sparks of heroism.
Yeah, the human spirit shining through.
Right, the 1st Minnesota Regiment.
Those brave souls.
Ordered to charge right into the advancing Confederates. Basically a suicide mission.
Buy some time, that was the order. Knowing they were marching into hell, but doing it anyway.
Because the fate of the battle, maybe even the war, depended on it.
Out of 262 men, only 47 survived that charge.
That's the kind of sacrifice that defines Gettysburg.
No doubt about it.
And then you've got Little Round Top, this rocky hill that became so vital for the Union.
Crucial position.
Colonel Joshua Chamberlain, 20th Maine Regiment, they're holding that hill for dear life.
Against wave after wave of Confederate attacks. Talk about resilience.
Chamberlain, his story, it's incredible.
Outnumbered, running low on ammo, but they refuse to give an inch.
Talk about grit.
At one point, they're backed up against a wall, literally.
What do they do?
Chamberlain orders a bayonet charge. Imagine that, sweeping down the hill, driving the Confederates back.
Turning point at Little Round Top.
It cemented Chamberlain's place in history, that's for sure.
But the battle, it didn't just stop there.
Oh no, the fighting raged on. All across that battlefield.
While Chamberlain's holding Little Round Top, another fight's brewing at the other end, Culp's Hill.
The Union 12th Corps, even after sending reinforcements to help Sickles, they're holding their ground too.
Confederates hit them hard.
It's like trying to put out fires everywhere at once.
As day 2 ends, nobody's sure who's winning. Both sides are bloodied, exhausted.
The battlefield, a nightmare. Thousands dead or wounded.
I can only imagine what was going through those soldiers' minds.
Knowing that the fight's not over, that tomorrow they got to do it all again.
The fate of the nation hanging in the balance, day 3 at Gettysburg. You can almost feel it, the tension, the exhaustion, but neither side is giving an inch.
No, they're both too dug in, too invested. The stakes are just too high.
It's like, imagine a boxing match going into the 15th round, both fighters bruised and battered, but they're still swinging.
And the whole world's watching, knowing that one of them is going down.
And over at Culp's Hill, the Union 12th Corps, they're not just holding on anymore, they're pushing back.
Oh yeah, they're launching counterattacks, trying to reclaim those trenches they lost on day 2.
Brutal fighting, close quarters, no time for fancy tactics, just pure grit and determination.
It shows you something about those Union soldiers, their resilience, that refusal to quit, even after 2 days of hell.
But Lou, on the Confederate side, he's got to be feeling the pressure, right? His plans, they haven't really panned out so far.
And this is where he makes a decision that'll be debated for, well, probably forever.
Pickett's charge.
Just the name sends chills down your spine.
I remember learning about it in school, just this image of thousands of Confederate soldiers marching across an open field, straight into the teeth of the Union defenses.
Suicide mission, some people call it.
So what led Lee to this decision? I mean, what was he thinking?
Well, he'd tried to break through the Union flanks at Little Round Top, at Culp's Hill. Nothing worked.
So he's getting desperate.
Maybe. Or maybe he was just too confident, thought his men could do anything.
But whatever the reason, the stage is set for one of the most dramatic and tragic moments in American history.
First, the artillery barrage. The biggest one the war had ever seen. Over 150 Confederate cannons just pounding the Union lines.
You got to try and picture it, the ground shaking, the smoke, the noise, the sheer terror of it all.
But the Union, they're ready. They've anticipated this.
Their commander, General Hunt, a brilliant artilleryman.
He held his fire, waited for the perfect moment to inflict maximum damage.
And that moment comes when the Confederate infantry emerges from the smoke, thousands of them, marching in perfect formation across that open field.
Incredible bravery, some might say foolhardiness.
And the Union guns, they open up, just unleash hell. Canister shot, exploding shells ripping through those Confederate ranks.
And as they get closer, the Union infantry joins in, volley after volley.
It's a slaughter.
Some units,
a
handful, they actually reach the Union lines, hand-to-hand combat, desperate. But it's too late. The tide had turned.
The high water mark of the Confederacy.
That's what they call it, the furthest point those Confederate soldiers reached. A monument stands there today.
A testament to the courage and the futility of that charge.
Pickett's charge was a disaster for the Confederacy. Thousands of casualties, their hopes for a victory at Gettysburg, gone.
But the battle wasn't quite over yet. There were still some pretty intense cavalry clashes happening.
Oh yeah, off to the northeast, you had Union cavalry, led by Gregg and Custer, clashing with Jeb Stuart.
Stuart finally back in action.
But even with Stuart's return, they couldn't turn the tide. It was a fierce fight, but in the end, a stalemate.
And then, to the southwest, a more tragic episode.
General Kilpatrick makes a reckless decision, orders a cavalry charge against fortified Confederate positions.
That was a disaster.
Hundreds of Union casualties, a needless loss of life.
It's a reminder that even in victory, war leaves scars, takes its toll.
As the sun sets on July 3rd, 1863, the Battle of Gettysburg is over. The Union, they've won, but at a tremendous cost.
51,000 casualties, the bloodiest battle in American history, the landscape scarred, the nation forever changed.
Lee retreats, defeated, but his army is still intact. The war, it will drag on.
But Gettysburg, it's a turning point, a symbol of Union resolve, a sign that maybe, just maybe, this nation might actually survive.
It's a story of courage, sacrifice, the human cost of war, and the enduring quest for unity, for a more perfect Union.
Gettysburg, it's a story that continues to resonate today, a reminder of the fragility of peace, the importance of understanding our past, and the sacrifices made to build the nation we have today.
It's a story that challenges us to learn from those who came before us, to strive for a better future, a future worthy of the sacrifices made on that hallowed ground.
Well, folks, that's our deep dive into the Battle of Gettysburg.
A story that never fails to move, to inspire and to remind us of the enduring power of the human spirit.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep the memory of those who fought and died at Gettysburg alive.